Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening. We're all in different parts of the world. We're here at the Being Healthy show today. We're waiting on Doreet to jump on, but we're going to go ahead anyway. And we've got fasting or feasting is the topic we're continuing with today. We have our guest hosts here again, Pete and Sabina. Um, Here we are. And then let's get started with a little background on water fasting. Water fasting is a great way we find to help the body to heal itself. And let's let this clip talk for us.
Water fasting consists of drinking only clean water and not eating any foods. There are 4 stages the body goes under when you eat no foods and only drink purified water. Of course, this depends on how long you are going to fast for. The first stage consists of when the body is being without food for 6+ hours and it starts running out of glucose from our food source such as carbs and other sugars that we eat on a regular basis. At this point, our muscles, heart, liver, and other vital organs will rely on fatty acids for energy. But the brain still needs that glucose for energy. Instead of getting glucose from our food, the brain will get glucose from our body's stored protein in a process called gluconeogenesis, which does create glucose from our amino acids so the brain can continue to receive glucose for energy. Now, the second stage is when your body has fast past the 22 hours and no longer has the glycogen stores. The brain knows this and will switch to a state where it spares protein in the body and moves to ketosis. In this stage, insulin levels are low, which is a good thing because insulin is what helps store the fat in the body, which we, of course, we would like to minimize that. When insulin and glucose levels are low, it causes the liver to send a message saying, "I'm low on glycogen," which in response the pancreas produces a molecule called glucagon. Now, glucagon will activate the enzyme lipase in our fatty tissue, which this does cause lipolysis or splitting of fat, which breaks the backbone of triglycerides into fatty acids and glycerol, which is then carried into the bloodstream by albumin. The fatty acids are then utilized by the muscles, heart, bones, and other organs for fuel. And some of the fatty acids are converted into ketone bodies, which is then used for energy for our brain. The glycerol backbone is converted into glucose and used for more energy for the brain. Even though the body is utilizing the biochemistry process of ketosis for energy, it still needs small amounts of real glucose, which it will get from non-essential proteins such as breaking down old scar tissue, worn out cells, and non-malignant growths. The third stage is called the compensated ketoacidosis, which is a complete shift of the body breaking down fat tissue. The brain no longer uses glucose at all, only uses ketones, which are broken down from fat storage. This process begins around about roughly 7 days of water fasting and continues until the person stops the fast. Fat loss can be as high as half pound to a pound of pure fat a day. Wow. The fourth stage is the danger stage. This is known as the starvation stage because the body has run out of non-essential proteins to use as glucose for the brain. And we'll go back to our vital organs to get proteins to convert into glucose for the brain. This puts your body in a state of complete breakdown of the body and happens for most people around 30 to 40 days of water fasting, depending on the amount of fat stores and muscle mass on an individual. For most people, I recommend my patients to just start with stage 1, which is fine on their own as long as they are not on serious medications or have serious illnesses. Stage 2, which is going past the 24 hours, I recommend that you need to be supervised by a medical physician, but that is where you will see the most health benefits. Stage 3 is when 7 days and beyond, you must be at least at a medical facility to be closely monitored. And stage 4, I never recommend. To find out about the benefits and how to do a proper water fast, subscribe to my channel so you can be alerted when those videos are posted. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on my videos of Docere, Doctor as Teacher.
Wow, fasting. Fasting is a fascinating topic. I think that video did a pretty good job of explaining it. I've experienced water fasting many years ago. I did a 29 days of water only, and that was a profound experience where I grew a lot as a person, really, through resting and just letting my mind do whatever it does, like when we sleep, that we process things and resolve issues in our life. So for me, that was the spiritual, personal kind of development was the main benefit. But so many people get other benefits from fasting, and there is the dangerous side. The stage 4 that the doctor was just talking about, where it does get dangerous, and people do have a tendency to want to keep fasting once they start. So this is why it's so imperative to, as I said, to be at a medical facility, to be with a supervised and experienced supervised water fasting supervisor. So that way, when things go wrong, you don't have to end your fast out of fear, which works against healing, but instead you get to have to resolve the issues and continue on with the water fast and let the body do what it knows best, how to heal. How about you guys? Pete, what do you think? What do you think about water fasting? Have you got experiences with water fasting? And what do you think about the video that we just watched?
Yes, yeah, I have experienced about 3 water fasts, and they all ended about 13 days. And then I'd carry on into juice on one of them. But in the early stages, I did do them on my own, researched it as much as I could. In the early stages, it's so important going into a fast and coming out. So I realized back then, it's just like I look back and think, oh my gosh, it can be so detrimental on how you come out of a fast, any fast, water fast, juice fast, dry fast, to the point where it can cause more damage. And it can be, to be honest, if I can agree from my experience, can be a whole waste of time for the body and give the wrong messages for the body if you come out of the fast wrong. So that's been some of my experiences. But they've all been epic, to the point where your whole reality, I would say, for me anyway, my belief system, I could believe I've got it nailed, like a lot of us can think we got it nailed, and know all the answers, etc. So to whatever level we are, it's beautiful going to, I would say, connect to a higher voice for me after 5 days. Generally 5 days, yeah, I just get shown just to not even think. So over the many years, it's just like drop in, don't even think, don't even kind of question. You're still proactive. So in the fast, I get, like you were saying, Grant, such a spiritual experience. My first fast, I couldn't work out to a degree what went on. And it took me a few months to actually digest, and I realized that 13 days was equivalent to me going three months, my experience many years before that, 3 months away in India. So it's just like, whoa, to me it was new. It's like, whoa, you can sit still and shift your whole inner universe. And then as years went on, I got to realize, everything is from an inner reflection, so to speak, out outward things we do can change inward, etc., etc. So my water fast was epic. It got me to look at many aspects of myself, should I say, how we project, many false beliefs, fears, as we have covered, false evidence appearing real. And then you can, depends where you are in terms of your whole life experience. But for me, it just took me to a whole nother level of potentially seeing things through a whole different light. I would say, and then I went on to dry fasting. So I've done a few of them. But we are talking about water fast. So it's a bit like, I feel like water fasting is the first level of the red pill. I personally feel dry fasting is when it digests and gets into your bloodstream. But that's my experience. So the water fasting has been epic. What do I think of the video? It's coming from a more medical perspective, and I do agree with it. It is good to seek someone who has done it many times, who has personal experience in it. Actually had the doctors done it, even though they got the theory. That's quite interesting, just to my mind. So, and then of course it's objective to the person's experience too. So hopefully they're well researched and they can hold space for the person doing it. And of course, different depends what level the person is at as well. If they're pretty toxicated up, maybe like it has expressed, maybe just do the first stage, and so I'll leave it that bit for now, really.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I think you covered a lot of great points there. It's so important about how you break the fast. I was told by my fasting supervisor that people, if you've got the mind, you've got maybe some health challenges, people can have the strong mindset to do a fast and to start a fast, but the challenge comes, and a lot of people will start doing on their own at home, thinking they're going to be fine. They just drink water and then they break it with some food. But people have, especially when people have disordered eating, bad relationships with food. There was one story of people that, a guy that broke a fast by eating a bag of nuts, and he literally died because you're reopening your digestive tract that's been shut down for some period of time, and then to throw down something heavy and slow like nuts is a terrible way to break a fast. You want to break it with something sweet and juicy, and in my case it was a watermelon. But another point about fasting for me was that my supervisor was really drilled in, was that it's about doing nothing as your activity. So for me, it was the first time I'd ever allowed myself to do nothing in my life. And it's just like about just stepping back, just resting completely on all levels, and food is just one level that you rest. So you're not working, you're not exercising, you're not on your computer all day, you're not running your business, you're not even to the point where you maybe stop even like reading books, and you just you rest as much as is possible to maximize the body's ability to use all this nerve energy that you get from sleeping to focus on healing the body and chewing up all this tissue that your body doesn't want. And it's just so amazing that the body really preserves everything, because your other features like your eyesight and your sense of smell, your five senses all get heightened, and because you're hungry, right? So you want to eat. And drinking water does make the hunger pass temporarily. So, and after you get a few days in, you don't really notice the hunger anymore. But it's just such a fascinating process. I want to hear what Sabina has to say on this matter, because I know she has some background in that as well.
Yeah, so water fasting is, I would call it a game changer. It was really a pivotal moment in my life. When I was 26, I read about fasting. I got so inspired, then I dived in all the way. So I was mainly inspired by the work of Arnold Ehret. And so I decided to do a 10-day water fast. I've never fasted before. I lived in New York City at that time and decided to do it also by staying as much as possible in my little apartment I lived at that time. So I was also focused on being silent and being still. So the first few days were really challenging for me. All kinds of symptoms came up, and of course, all kinds of beliefs. I shouldn't be doing this. This is dangerous, etc. But then once I went past the 5th day, I experienced something I never experienced before. I really felt this feeling of oneness and totally in alignment with life and who I am, and just experiencing joy coming out of nowhere, joy just to be here, happy for no reason. So it was this incredible feeling, and I would call it was really like a spiritual awakening for me, because I did not come from any spiritual background. I actually worked in the fashion industry at that time. And for me, it was like something I've never experienced before. And also what I really got from fasting is that I can be with nothing and realize I have everything. And I don't need anything from outside. I don't need someone to acknowledge me, or nothing has to really happen. And I got this feeling of joy and just complete oneness with all of life. So it was a deep spiritual feeling for me, awakening. And then I decided to do it on a regular basis. So ever since, I've been usually twice a year. I do a few days of fasting. And then what happened in 2017, I got Lyme disease to a point that I was in such pain, I could barely function. I was a few days in bed with such pain, almost bedridden. And I was wondering, how can this happen? Because I'm so healthy. I eat mostly raw. I do regular fasting. And then I realized, there's a message here. It's time to go to the next level. That just doing like a few days per year is not enough. And then I have devoted to doing a ritual that every month I would fast for 5 days. And I did this over 6 years. So I fasted 300 days over 6 years. And that, every time I went to the fast, there was another piece, another layer coming up. I suddenly had experience from my childhood coming up, so relationships to my father. So over time, it was not just cleansing my body. I actually experienced entire new levels of digestion. I had my whole life had digestion issues. And suddenly, when being able to go to the bathroom 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day, I've never experienced that before. So my whole digestion system completely got upgraded and improved. Also, I just experienced my body just kept opening and becoming more flexible. Actually, the older I got, the more flexible I became just through fasting. And my body also naturally guided me towards a certain way of eating. Like certain foods that were attractive before, my body suddenly didn't want anymore. So over time, my palate changed, my desire for food. And at some point, all I wanted to is eat fruit. So for 6 months, I basically only ate fruit. Pretty much. But then what happened, I got too skinny because I'm naturally skinny. And I realized that it is a great diet for me to feel good and have massive energy, sleep improved, everything. But I became too thin. So I had to include other foods. But my body naturally guided me toward what's best. And also, was also guided towards certain steps to take in my life. So fasting is just such an incredible tool, because you can actually release stuff like blocks that you have, mental blocks, emotional blocks can be released through fasting. Also, somehow your mind clears up. You know more who you are and what you're here to do, what your purpose is. All these things kept crystallizing to me during that 6-year window of fasting. So it was like every month I had a reset, new perspective of life. Life would just guide me naturally towards what's most aligned for me. So it was an incredible experience. But I also definitely would say, don't do it without supervision if you have never done it before. I did it, I just jumped in, but I did a lot of research before. But then over the years, by continue to practice it every month, then I actually started to support others. With people approached me and wanted to have the same experience. So I started to guide others And over the past 4 years, I've guided about 500 people to a water fast or juice cleanse. Many of them did water fasts, but I always focused on short fasts. And I kept it to 3 days, 5 days. Some people would go to 7 days. And it's just been very fulfilling to see the changes and the transformation people had, especially with the emotional piece. Because for me, fasting was more like why I did it was because I wanted to get to the best level of health. Because as a child, I never had health. So health was a big piece in my life. And the goal of fasting was getting myself to the highest level of health and energy possible. But then in the process of diving deep, I realized there's this big emotional piece. So all my trauma kept coming up. All these unresolved emotions from childhood kept coming up. And a lot of my limiting beliefs, they all came to the surface. So fasting is a game changer on all levels: emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. Yes, and it was a huge spiritual experience as well.
Sorry, mute problem.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Sabina. That's incredible.
It's amazing.
I'm totally on board with everything you were saying. Then, you know, I was working with a fasting supervisor for about 7 years, just for 2 or 3 months of the year in Costa Rica, and I saw more than 100 people and assisted more than 100 people getting through a 3 to 4 week water fast. So they were kind of longer fasts, and I saw during that time that, like in the introduction video, that you know, more than 30 to 40 days is getting to that stage 4, and it's to me, it's just not worth the risk of going longer. You're better off to do multiple shorter fasts, and you know, anything more than like even a 3-day fast, you're still getting into burning fat in that time, and producing ketosis, and getting into some sort of deeper healing. But they do say as the fast goes on, the days later in the fast, and I do notice from experience that each day the body is kind of capable of more. The more it's worked on, the more it's able to work on things. So it is better to get yourself in a healthier state before you're starting fasting, and to really, like, it's really important to start following a healthy lifestyle and make changes before the fast, so that after the fast you can return to that healthy lifestyle, rather than reverting back to unhealthy habits, as many people do. Some people fast for weight loss, and that's a terrible reason to fast. It's a side effect of fasting, but really, your ideal weight should be a consequence of how you live. So water fasting can help you to clean out things and get better absorption, so you can absorb nutrients better. Some people will improve their B12 levels while they're water fasting. So they're not taking any food in, they're not, you know, they're just resting. But because their absorption of nutrients improves, because their whole digestive tract is getting a rest, it's getting to clean out, the B12 absorption improves, and the B12 that is present from the bacteria in our digestive tract, your B12 levels can increase while water fasting. So it's quite an interesting thing too. But I want to talk to you guys about what's your top, like, what thing are you most impressed with out of water fasting, and name. I don't want to glorify fasting too, because there are dangers, there are traps and things you can go in the wrong direction. So let me know what your top pro and your top trap or con, or something that's, you know, maybe a red flag for you about fasting. Let me know your thoughts about that, and we'll start with Pete.
Anyway, yes, Sabina, that was amazing. I'll just quickly jump in terms of sometimes why we avoid certain things is because certain issues are going to come up. So I had the similar experience, and let's just say maybe had a little bit of spiritual awareness, but could not believe that door after door after door was opening. I didn't realize you go through one door and it's just like there's so many more doors, and then you go through another door. There's layers and layers. So when you share that experience doing the 5 days each month, I'm totally on board with you there. And some people will never get to experience that. So it's just been epic, a part of myself that I rekindled, and I did remember, but I would have never remembered if I hadn't took a certain course. So in terms of water, bottled water, it's just like you hear some people just drink loads of water. And, obviously over so many 5 years or so, maybe or more, but, I meet people, certain women who have had kidney stories, so they're drinking loads of bottled water. And majority of the time it continues, and on antibiotics and all sorts of nonsense, and obviously doing serious harm. And I'm one for jumping in and experiencing. The Arnold Ehret is great. Got quite into him, his research. So jumping in and experiencing. So even though we looked at that clip, and it's explaining the scientific or biological effect on the body, if I look back in retrospect and let's just say believe some, I'm going to call them myths, you must drink 5 liters a day. You must, when you're on a juice fast or on the water rag, you must. And I was going with my body, my first green fast is just like, well, it's 2 liters is just doing okay for me. Obviously, it can differ with many people, but the main one is bottled water. When people just say go on a juice fast or water fast, is bottled water, is a nightmare. So what are they doing? Just contaminating their body even more. And the myth of how much liquids we should have. I would also, I'm presuming in Costa Rica, you would have had spring. There's different data on distilled. I do distilled. Back then I did do spring water. So I'm an advocate of distilled. There's my body's okay with that. People say add this, add that. I don't do salt, so I wouldn't go adding salt to it. I think in terms of the negative polarity, as it is said, that the distilled pulls out the positives, quite a twist here, which is the toxic stuff in us, which has a positive polarity. So the distilled aids pulling that out. So to add anything more in the water, to me, we got so much, let's just say, toxic stuff in our body already. So, and to, I don't want to go too much on distilled anyway. So they're to me, they're some of the red flags. Why are we drinking bottled water? And the quantity that has been thrown around of how much you should be drinking.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Totally agree with the distilled water. I'd also throw in reverse osmosis water is fantastic option. So they're probably the best kind of options. In Costa Rica, yeah, we had water actually coming from a river high up the mountain, and it was going through multiple filters, like 3 different filters to make it clean, and it tasted just absolutely incredible. So yeah, that was that option. And Sabina, what are your pros and cons? The top pro and top con of water fasting.
So what I saw a lot by guiding other people through a fast is many people listening too much to the voices in their head, or they get certain symptoms and they get scared. They're suddenly not feeling well, and then they think there's something wrong. They have to start eating again. So it's the belief, that that it might be dangerous, the fear that you're starving yourself, when in fact it's the purification. At the end, it's all about mindset. It's all about how you see it. But when you don't feel good, that's actually a sign that toxicity is being stirred up and released. So that's never feels good. But people often get scared too easily. And then the other mistake they make, they go to something that is actually not suitable for breaking a fast. Like I had people, they would get panicked, they didn't feel good at night, they go to potato chips, which is probably the worst you can break a fast. Because when we give the body such a long break, it's critical to start slowly introducing food that is very easy for the body, such as watermelon, you said, Grant, which is probably the best food for breaking the fast. So something that has a lot of water content is very easy for the body to break down, but never any cooked food or fried food or dried food that is, it's actually, you can cause a lot of damage to your body. And I see people, making all kinds of mistakes and then just breaking too early just by not feeling good. When sometimes we have not sometimes, but often in fasting, it's about learning to be with those feelings. When the uncomfortable sensations come up, learning to be with it and knowing there's a cleanup process taking place. And I always call it, it's like surgery by Mother Nature, or being on nature's operating table. Seeing it like this is not pleasant, but when we learn to rest, and you said that also, Graham, resting it's a critical piece. When we learn to rest and learn to be with the uncomfortable, we can actually move through the uncomfortable, and then you will often get to the other side and suddenly have this boost of energy and feel great again. So I always say fasting is like it's like a surfing process, and it comes in these waves, and we have to learn to surf through the waves. And sometimes the wave is very pleasant and gentle, and sometimes the wave is intense and strong. And it's about breathing through it, resting through the wave, and just being with it. And this is just a part of this process. So yes, it's a mental game. It's a big piece is the mindset, and also critical piece is knowing how to break the fast, which is actually the most important piece. And that's where most people make the mistake. They give up way too early, and they break it in a way that can cause damage to the body. And then there's another piece what a lot of people are missing is they do a fast and then they go back to the old patterns again. When in fact, fasting is actually, there's always a message, how to integrate the fast by making new choices. Always looking what can we let go of that is no longer serving us, and which new dietary changes can we integrate into our life. So fasting is about making changes afterwards, not going back to the old ways, because then you haven't really accomplished much. You just had an experience, but nothing truly changes unless we make the integration and take different action steps with consistency.
Yeah, that's great, Sabina. You like nailed the mindset thing, and I think that the way to get around the mindset, because it's the mindset and the negative habits we go back to, is often the things that got people unstuck and why they're having health challenges in the first place, right? Because their lifestyle back at home has various challenges, whether it's from not getting enough sleep to eating toxic things or binging on things or having toxic relationships and arguing and having a negative mindset, like being paranoid about things, or all kinds of things can get in people's minds, and you can be sure that those are the things that will come up during the fast, because that's your stuff, and that's what the body is going to work on. It's going to put right in your face. And when you're resting, you without distractions, it's the great equalizer, and everybody essentially heals through that. Is what we kind of notice. So I wanted to mention about breaking the fast. We mentioned about breaking a fast with something juicy, and watermelon is, I agree that that's the most ideal food you can possibly break with. But the quantity is also important, and this is where having a supervisor, they can help guide you through that, and make sure you only have that you only have available the quantity that you should be eating at that point in time. Because when you first break a fast, especially a longer fast of 2, 3, or 4 weeks, it becomes more and more important how you break it. And I broke a 29-day water fast with just a wafer thin slice of watermelon. It looked like nothing. I mean, my eyes were looking at it thinking, oh, I'm still going to be hungry after I eat that. These kind of irrational kind of thoughts. But the reality was I ate that small piece of watermelon very slowly, and it was the most incredible texture on my tongue and the flavors, and it was the most profound literal bite of food in my life. Like it was, and I've eaten some good fruit. But that experience of breaking the fast with watermelon, the texture on my tongue, you almost want to cry. It's so beautiful. But after I finished that small piece, I was completely full and satisfied. I went away for a couple of hours, and came back, and then had another slice, and then went away and came back and had another slice, and then it was time for bed. Slept a full night, came back the next morning, and then eating just slightly increasing the quantities. And I ate watermelon for 3 days after a 29-day fast, before moving on to something else a little bit more calorie dense but still juicy, like mango, that kind of thing. And then after maybe 5 days, I was onto bananas, and then and then shortly after that, I was adding in salad items and leafy greens and other vegetables, zucchinis, cucumbers, courgettes. Zucchinis in the UK, for those listening from the UK. And it just kind of increase the complexity of the foods. And doing that one by one, you can also see if you have any food intolerances, which can be some of the reasons why people have challenges to start with. Maybe some people have digestive problems where they feel bloating or bile coming out, like revisiting food that won't stay down, like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disorder. Things like that can be just caused by people eating food that maybe is unripe, or fruits that are not ripe, or things like that. So they can get rid of bloating. And when you break the fast one food at a time, introducing one food at a time after the fast, it's a really healthy, conscious process where you really notice each new food, you really appreciate it, and you can notice how you feel. And I think it's really important to just have that like slowed down approach to fasting, where you're noticing a lot of things and having a lot of awareness, so you can set better practices in motion going forwards. Like I mentioned in the opening video, there's certain conditions that just water fasting is a crazy idea. So if you've got type 1 diabetes, don't even think about water fasting. Some people have done that, and they're giving themselves insulin during a fast, and it's like Russian roulette. Every fasting supervisor that I've ever spoken to about fasting type 1 diabetics says that it's a complete crazy idea that never works out well, and nobody understands the physiology exactly to do that in any sort of safe way. So just risking people's lives for no reason, it's not worth it. Better off to just stay low fat and live healthfully, and to minimize the amount of insulin you need to take by managing your blood sugar, by eating healthy foods and not having lots of sugar, then lots of fat, then lots of sugar, then lots of fat. So staying hydrated is super important during a fast. I did, Pete, you mentioned 5 liters like it was an extreme thing. I actually did have 5 liters a day for most of my fast, and that felt right for me, but I couldn't have imagined having a drop more. But for most people that I've noticed, they have 2 to 3 liters a day while they're water fasting. Seems to be normal for most people. And for me, the last 5 days of my 29-day fast, I was drinking more like 1.8 to 2 liters was kind of all because I was sleeping so much and resting for like literally like up to 17 hours a day. I was just like lying down in a deep state of rest. Maybe not fully asleep, but asleep for most of the time, I think. And so I felt like I didn't really have time to drink more water. But water, if you're not, I think the best way to measure if you're hydrated during a fast is counting how many times you pee in a 24-hour period have a chart and write it down. And anytime you pee with any sort of volume, you don't just count a couple of drops, a couple of little sprinkle. So whenever you have a pee, you count it. And if you're peeing 8 to 12 times a day, then that's great. You're hydrated. If you're peeing 6 or less times a day, I would say you shouldn't continue the fast. And I know Pete's probably had some. I don't want to get into dry fasting either, but I've found it to be, kind of a dangerous process, not worth the risks, and because the body needs water to function, and so cells can't function as well if with the absence of water. So that's why I think water fasting is such a great approach, because it really works for everybody apart from people with failing livers or type 1 diabetes or a few other conditions. And you wouldn't want to fast while you're pregnant either, unless it's kind of life-threatening or something like that. Yeah, what a roller coaster, like it was described. Yeah, I want to hear more about what you guys want to say about fasting. I want to just leave it open and just Pete, if you want to add some more.
Yeah, I agree in terms of trying to play it very safe. So water fasting is a great introduction. Juice fast, water fast, a great introduction to kind of let's just say less stress on the body, and obviously from let's just say, well, I'm going to try not to keep saying let's just say. Anyway, from juicing to water fasting is less for the body to work, really. The dry fasting has been an interesting journey for me. I didn't know nothing about it till 8 years ago. So that has been an interesting journey. There's different data from that. In relation to, there's some things where, when you come off the fast, it's like treat your body like you're a baby, and it's great how you was just expressing how you came off and you went very mono. Some people could just think we're crazy. What are we talking about? Me 20 years ago, I would be one of them people. However, you can have a new leash of life each time, and as Sabina mentioned and Grant has mentioned in terms of the benefits from it and what you get to see, and so you can start regenerating. The cells can truly start regenerating. So yeah, it is just amazing. They've been epic for me. Epic. Each first 2 days, 3 days can be challenging. And if I look back on my first one, I nearly stopped after 3 days, and that was a green juice fast, because it was like an analogy of it was like a tornado going on in my body. It's like, if this is going to be like how I feel in the rising, I'm going to stop. Come the rising, total calm. I could not believe it. It was just unbelievable. Would never believed anyone telling me that's how it can shift. So, and then it was just rolled on beautiful after that. And as Grant said, yeah, you can sort of get carried away. So it's listening, it's having a good, strong connection, intuition. Mine have all been by symbols, and Sabina mentioned 17 or so many years raw, and she had Lyme's disease. I get shown like that as well. I'm like, well, I've been raw for 7 years. I shouldn't be getting this. And then in retrospect, I look back, too much cashews, too much dates, too much bananas, compromising my body. So it's like, well, come on, wake up. So, and cacao for many, many, many years. So, as well as seeing how you can go back even on this journey. And I witness people going back strong, let's just say activists on raw food, and then they're total flip. Personally, I see, as Sabina mentioned, Grant mentioned, our stuff comes up, our trauma comes up. So we have the option to go through that door, or we close the door. People can disagree, but I done a lot of rebirth breath work in my teens, and potential shadowy work, what they call there, in terms of trauma coming up. So it's beautiful. I had that, which held me in good stead. So I see where we turn back. It's not judging. It's just like, okay, if we went over that hurdle, as far as I'm concerned, it always gets better. So it's the fear, false evidence appearing real. So we have an option to go through something which we judge like a program, pain, trauma. With supercomputers, just see it as a program. If you see it as it's just a download, we can just get rid of that and come back to our more divine essence of ourselves. People might think what we're talking about, but that's been my journey, and it's really nice to share with Grant, share with Sabina. So yeah, you can experience part of yourself. It's just unbelievable, and integrate them strong in our lives. So yes, things come up. It's good to have support through the journey, and then what are we going back to? Are we going back to, like as Grant mentioned, hopefully we have the enough awareness to come out of more toxic relationships, toxic foods, and even if it is implementing a little bit each time we do it. Most times I come off the fast, I'm like, right, I'm not going to do none of this, none of this. But over the years, I've got there. So as Sabina mentioned, I realized the body is ready for the next stage, and we really have to be sort of listen to that. If I look back on my journey, I would, and it showing me things now. Okay, right, come on, you're evoking spirit. I'm evoking. What are we doing? We're evoking our spirit connection. We're getting rid of, as far as I'm concerned, all the program I, id, ego, old, worn out, peak personality, character, imprint from surroundings, family, and then, friends and close family are going to try and keep you to that because that's all they know unless they shift. So there's all this pullback, or you have to kind of just let them go, and we're on our unique individual journey. So yeah, they're the main things I can say about it. So through the fasting and many other things, it's really nice to each time get closer back to an essence of what I would call is more my true self.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. That's really cool. Over to Sabina.
Wow, that was very powerful, Pete. I tell you that you touched on so many different points. And I love this example of the doors. Yeah, it's another door opening into the next level health. Because what I learned from this journey is there's always a next level. And there's actually no such thing as perfect health. We're just moving towards the next level, really, of what's available to us, and also moving deeper into our true essence and deeper of who we really meant to be. So fasting is I would say it's an accelerator. It's more, I find it more powerful than meditation. And what I love most about fasting is this heightened sense of awareness. You really get to these states, you are so present. It's like ultra presence. You cannot experience in any other way. And it's about, because you're releasing those dense energies from your body, and you're tuning into something like it's a more subtle frequency of life. And from such a place, we can actually step outside of ourselves and see ourselves in a whole new light. And I had many nights I couldn't even sleep. I was so on, so I would almost say high, but so high on life and so deeply connected to who I am. And I was almost able to see my whole life, like watching a movie and seeing all these clips about, and seeing exactly why certain things didn't work out and which opportunities and which relationships worked out in a certain way. So a lot of the stuff that we don't see in our daily life, they actually come to the surface, and they come up for a reason, because they want to go out. So fasting is a way to actually cleanse that stuff out. Everything that's not supposed to be there and that actually blocks us from our true essence will come up. And then when we process it with love and acceptance, these pieces then can dissolve and get released. So I found always this, this total tuned into like ultra presence. I find it very, very gratifying, and there's something you cannot experience any other way. And so anyone who has ever fasted will know what I'm talking about. I had no idea this actually exists. Even I meditated before for many, many years, but fasting has gotten me to a much deeper place than any meditation can do. And when you meditate in the process of fasting, that's like double power. So that was just one of the experiences that I noticed over time. That's why I kept continuing over 6 years. There was just another layer of awareness, and just being able to see myself in a way that all the pieces I didn't like about myself, they actually came up. And then I always have the choice, I can release that, I can let go of that, and then choosing anew. So it was just a process of recalibration. And Pete, you said something about refinement. Yeah, it's about refining ourselves. So fasting gives us the fast way to refine ourselves and to polish those pieces within us that are actually not serving us and keeping us small and keeping us limited. So with fasting, we have the opportunity to see them for what they are, and then we can refine and calibrate and really get clear, why am I here on this plane? Like I contemplated these questions many times. Who am I and why am I here? These two most important questions. And also, what is my heart's desire? So during fasting, after sitting for 300 days with water, I contemplated deeper and deeper these questions. And I received downloads, just information coming right into me and through me. And I became so creative. I was writing poetry, writing entire essays, and even wrote a book. Part of my book that I wrote many years ago was written on a fast, because it just kept pouring out of me. And I had no idea I had that much I always was creative, but I had no idea how much creativity is within me. And that is actually within all of us. And sadly, most people never tap into that. But fasting allows us to really tap into our treasures, I call it, our deep treasures that are here to be excavated. So it's a beautiful journey, the fasting journey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sabina and Pete. Like you both touched on so many awesome points. Fasting, it's an incredible, very deep and personalized experience, and there are experts out there that can help you with it. I do want to say, fasting can have dangers if people don't know what they're doing. It's easy to get in trouble if you just dive into it without having experience and without having education, without having support, without having even emergency care not too far away if you happen to need it for some reason. So yeah, we're not recommending everybody should do this, but personally, I think that that would be incredible. I think the world would change a lot if everybody did a short water fast. I think most people go through their life without missing even a day of food. Some people not even missing a meal, and it is mind-opening. I do encourage people, just try missing a meal. Start out maybe missing just having a 24-hour fast and just see what that feels like. And like Sabina said, you'll feel all your stuff will come up. You'll feel emotionally challenged. You'll feel vulnerable, and that's okay. It's okay if it's powerful to embrace vulnerability when you're in a safe space. So yeah, that's kind of getting towards the end of today's show. We're going to next week we're going to continue on with the same kind of areas of fasting and feasting, but from different perspectives. And Doreet will lead that when she's back next week. But fasting is the great equalizer. You know, we've mentioned it's better to do shorter fasts than to do a massive long fast. It's not worth the risk of doing the long fast unless you maybe have a life-threatening challenge. Yeah, staying hydrated is super important. Peeing 8 to 12 times a day, and more than 12 times is really just inconvenient. It's not really usually a big problem unless you're 30 times a day or something, because you can dilute your minerals. And minerals is the reason why people shouldn't fast for a long time, I would say, because when you're not eating food, you're not topping up your minerals, and your body still uses some minerals. So that's why nobody's suggesting that anyone does a crazy long fast and get into stage 4 of the intro video where your body starts breaking down. That's dangerous, and it's not. It's crazy. But healing happens on an emotional, physical, physiological, spiritual level, all of these different levels, and just through resting, we grow and become ourselves. So I want to leave it there today. Thank you for joining us for the show, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you to our co-hosts as well.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you,
Pete.
Sabina.
Thank you, Sabina. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Pleasure to do the show with you guys. You have a lot of wisdom and experience, and I really, really enjoyed learning more about you guys.
It's great.
You could probably just leave now. But potentially the only place for your